So you're thinking about making a move to Portland, Oregon, but you're sort of nervous about all the things maybe you've seen and heard. Well, in this video, I'm here to break it down for you. I'm not going to hold back. You're going to hear it from someone who's lived here my entire life and seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So stick around because we're getting after it right now. Stewart. I've been a real estate broker for over 23 years here in Portland. And if you have never been to our channel, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, because every single week we are putting out videos and content all about living in Portland, moving to Portland, and all things Portland. And we would love for you to be an active participant in our community. Feel free to comment and let us know how you think. And if you are looking to make a move and you need some help and assistance, shoot us an email, give us a call, text us. We would welcome the opportunity to talk with you about making the move and hopefully making it very smooth for you. And we'll talk to you soon. In this video, I thought I would just kind of keep it really real and maybe make it a little bit more of a conversation style about living in Portland in 2024. Now, it's no surprise we had a real tough time during COVID and after COVID. It was basically, everyone around the world was hearing all the news about what was going on in Portland. We had riots during COVID. We had a crazy number of homeless moving into the area and parking themselves everywhere. We just had all kinds of crazy going on, and I ain't denying that because it was real. But how real is it today? Should you be scared about moving to Portland? Should you be nervous? What's really happening in Portland? Well, I'm going to tell you right now that I don't live inside of the downtown Portland area. So that perspective is coming from me driving in and out of downtown over the last few years, and this year in particular. I do have a family member near and dear to my heart that moved into the downtown area, and I'll speak to that as well. And we'll just share what we can about what we know so that you can get a little bit of a reality on what's happening here in Portland. So let's start off with the most obvious one that tends to come up a lot in questions when people are making a move is just how bad is the homeless crisis? And yes, it is a crisis. We have way too many people living on the streets. We have way too many drug addicts going on here. We have a lot of things that unfortunately happen when you have a big group of people living outside. And unfortunately, it causes all kinds of mayhem. It increases crime, drug usage, the mental health situation is pretty bad. So is it bad enough that it affects me or people I know on a daily? And a lot of this answer depends on where are you living in Portland? Because I don't live in an area that has a high saturation of homelessness. I have to drive to see it. Do I have homeless in the area I live in? Yes, everybody in all of Portland has some degree of homeless. It's just to what degree? Prior to COVID, we had homeless. Years before that, we had homeless. So homeless is not new, but Portland definitely supported a lot of people coming to Portland to be homeless. So we're not going to avoid that topic. It is what it is. And we have had, as a Portland community, we've gotten taxed heavily for those of us who qualify to pay the Portland Metro Housing tax. So now many of us are contributing to paying for homeless services. Do we feel like that is actually doing something? Yes and no. I personally would be happy to pay taxes on a homeless tax, assuming it's working, right? I think that's how most of us feel. We don't want to throw money into the wind and have it do absolutely nothing. Certain things we've seen in the last 6 to 12 months here in Portland is we have seen more cleanups around Portland. So instead of it being everywhere and anywhere, we're seeing a lot more areas getting cleaned up. Does that mean the homeless have gone away? Sure doesn't. We don't actually know what happens to them. Maybe they're migrating further out. Maybe they're just going to another area. Maybe they're coming back and resetting up shop. I don't know. But I have noticed it being a lot cleaner than I did before as I drive around downtown or I go around town. Now, there are areas of Portland that are heavy in houseless people. And I'm not going to name those names or areas because quite honestly, I want you as a consumer to do your own research, and I don't want to be wrong because I don't keep track of it all that often, to be honest. It's not something I follow. However, I do know of clients that will share with me that they're uncomfortable living in certain parts of the Portland Metro due to there being a higher, population of houseless people. So it's important to do your research. It doesn't take much to do your research if you're living here. You could probably just drive around the neighborhood in the area and figure out really quickly if there is a homeless population. You could talk to the locals, the neighbors. I always encourage people to do a lot more research on their own. But again, it really does come down to where in Portland. I happen to live on the west side in the burbs, and quite frankly, we just don't have a lot of it. There's a lot of us who, yes, we know we have homeless. Yes, we drive around and see it when we're particularly driving around the city parts. But in the suburbs, it's not as frequent. Do we have it? We absolutely have it. You could go to Lake Oswego, which is one of the most, expensive areas in all of Portland to live in, and you're gonna see homeless. Yes, downtown Lake Oswego, I've seen it. I have an office there, and occasionally we see the homeless people walking around and whatever. But it's not as common as in the burbs as it is in the inner cities. And that's for obvious reasons. There's more services in closer in areas. There's public transportation. There's more migration happening on foot. So a lot of it has to do with where people are going on foot or taking public transportation, or where the services are highest for them to be taken care of. They also have areas of town where they're trying to get people into housing. So maybe the biggest thing we can talk about that might be considered a positive is that they are really trying hard to get houseless people into shelters and housing. And they've created housing around the Portland area that they are now instigating. Well, let's go back to the fact that there was an encouragement or a law that passed that basically said you're not supposed to be sleeping on the public sidewalks. So instead of putting everybody in jail, because that doesn't really solve the problem, right? We just fill up our jail cells with people that don't have anywhere to go. They're basically giving them the option now to go into housing that the city has created. So I did hear research on that recently that suggested that there has been a positive shift in that direction, that a pretty good percentage of people are moving into that housing. And that housing is designed for people that are currently homeless, living on the streets. And it's designed for them to get off the streets and not, cohabitate in areas and cause more issues. Whether that's going to turn out to be successful or not is probably yet to be seen, but it's always probably a good idea to get people into shelter for weather elements and more resources. But stay tuned, because it's always a hot topic in Portland. Do I feel overall, just to wrap up this particular conversation on the houseless or homeless, however you want to call it, do I feel like it's heading in a better direction? The answer is yes. I do feel like in general, it's not so acute in the Portland area. It seems like it's getting better, but dare I say it hasn't improved dramatically as of yet. I think it's a very difficult problem to solve. I think everybody would agree on that. I don't think anybody knows the exact answer on how to fix this. I think we kind of opened up Pandora's box during COVID, allowed a lot more people to migrate to Portland to utilize services, and now we're sort of stuck with this issue, and it's a perpetual problem. But I do think that there are some things getting better. But again, it's not something that happens overnight, and I don't think it's going to be 100% solved. I think sometimes it's just a management of what we've created here in the Portland metro area. If you're somebody moving from outside of Portland and you've heard all of these things, I always encourage you to come and visit. A lot of people say once they visit, they don't see the problem as poignant as they once heard. There are other people that feel like it is as bad as they've heard, but they may also be coming from areas that don't have a lot of homeless going on. In my opinion, a lot of big metro cities have this issue, especially on the West Coast. And so if you compare us to our California counterpart cities or Seattle, yes, we compare to them, but we're not as a problem as probably are. I think we have it a little bit more under control than some of those other areas from my own personal perspective, from talking to people that have lived or moved from those areas. So it is an issue. It's going to stay an issue. So if you have an issue with it, maybe don't move to Portland. But if you're open to seeing what Portland's like and to see that if there is alternative areas that you can live in that you feel like, hey, it's pretty similar to a lot of major cities that struggle with these issues, then welcome to Portland, because there's a lot of good things going on with Portland, and let's talk about it. Some of the great things about Portland that keep people living here and moving here on the regular is that we do have a lifestyle that is an experience to live here. There's not a lot of places around the country that you're going to find this type of lifestyle living. Now, we're not perfect. This video is not about trying to convince you that Portland is a perfect place to live. It most certainly is not. There's quite a few people that would be happy to move out of Portland because they feel like it's changed quite a bit. Maybe it's the political thing, maybe it's the way we're being run. I wouldn't blame them for those things, but I also think there's enough things here that a lot of people believe in Portland. I certainly do. I didn't move out when the worst happened, and I feel like Portland is on its way back up. I do think we have immense challenges, especially in the downtown inner core. A lot of businesses have moved out of downtown because of all the chaos and the homeless and the crime, and I don't blame them. I think businesses are going to take a while to make a comeback. I think Portland's going to have to do a lot to incentivize businesses to sign leases again in the commercial sector. And I am not ignoring the fact that the commercial buildings in downtown Portland that are being sold for pennies on the dollar. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to watch the news and hear that Montgomery Park sold for pennies on the dollar and another building just sold for pennies on the dollar when they used to sell for so much more. And you know what? That's part of hitting bottom, right? A lot of businesses, when they leave Portland and they don't want to come back in until they know it's actually a thriving place again, it's going to take years. I mean, I looked at the situation years ago when it was really bad, and I thought this is going to take the better part of a decade to bring Portland back if in fact leadership makes good or better decisions to help businesses climb back in. Because most businesses don't want to put their hard-earned money and time into an area where they're not getting the support, and it could be potentially dangerous for them even to have their businesses there. So I think the downtown core is going to take a long time. Now, does that mean all of downtown has, gone wrong? No. In fact, if you go down to the Pearl District today and you're running around there, it doesn't seem too bad. There's people out walking around having dinners. A lot of the businesses down there have stuck around. Have we lost restaurants? Absolutely. I think even if it wasn't a huge crisis during COVID, I think COVID did a number on businesses in general, people eating out. I don't know about you, but I don't eat out near what I did before COVID. So I think a lot of this has to do with the typical economics we faced with inflation and after COVID circumstances, but then you kind of factor in all the chaos we had over those times, and well, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. So I think overall, if you're walking around the Pearl District, you don't really sense too big of a change. Even Northwest 23rd, which is a hot spot for restaurants and retail. I actually sold a place down there about a year ago and spent a lot of time with my buyer client researching that area, walking around, talking to people who live there, who are walking their dogs. And they were even like, yeah, it's not too bad over here. I mean, we don't see any problems in Northwest 23rd. Are there areas that have in Northwest? Sure. They made comments about where you may not want to walk alone or things of that nature. But at the end of the day, a lot of those prime areas that did very well before COVID are still doing really well after COVID. So does that mean we are in the clear yet? No, it doesn't. I think Portland has a long ways to go, but I also believe in Portland, and I think a lot of people do. And I think it's going to take a lot of time to come back to where we even started. And maybe we won't quite get back to where we started. Maybe it's going to be something a little different, but I do believe in Portland. I don't think it's over for Portland. I know a lot of people call us a dumpster fire. It doesn't take much to post a video about Portland to hear people just ranting on about how awful it is. But why are there so many people who stay and move here on the regular? So yeah, it's lifestyle. It's being able to take 15, 20 minutes and go to world-class wineries. I go up to the mountain on the weekends during the winter and I ski. And I know a lot of my friends and colleagues who ski and snowboard up there. There's a ton of, activities to do on the mountain, which is literally a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a day drive and back to get up there. And I don't know about you, but if you enjoy doing those kind of activities, where are you going to go other than maybe Colorado, where you can get up and back in a day? How about going to the beach for a day? You can do that here too. You can go down to, let me paraphrase, coast. We have no beaches here, too cold. But if you appreciate long walks on a beach and getting maybe some clam chowder at Moe's or walking around and just looking at the lovely ocean, you're not that far away from it. We also have tons of hiking and kayaking and if you are an outdoorsy person, literally within an hour of Portland is everything at your fingertips. So if you are an active person in that regard, great. Stick around because you're going to find that everywhere you go here. And it may not be that when you live here, you see any of the chaos that you hear about in the news. In fact, I'm one to tell you that I rarely, if ever, see things that in my driving around or daily activities that disturb me about Portland. Do I know they exist? Do I see them from time to time? Yes, but my everyday living is not affected by it. And I would venture to say a lot of people can say the same depending on where they live. So think about that for a minute. It is one of those where, if you're going to live in the downtown or certain parts of Portland, you might see it. But if you're still living in Portland in the suburbs or certain parts of Portland, you may not see it that much and you may feel perfectly safe and fine. Whereas other areas are a lot more intense with that. So you must do your homework online. I can't tell you as a real estate professional, legally, I'm not allowed to talk about crime and what areas are better for that or not. That is going to be left up to you. But certainly there are plenty of areas that people feel very safe. And we've done videos on this. Niche.com is a great place to see what people say about living in different communities around Portland. They give great reviews on do they feel safe and what they might say about those areas. So just do some homework on it. And there are some fantastic areas of Portland that still people love to live in. And probably the last thing I want to talk about is we have several counties in and around the Portland metro area. Now, Multnomah County being the main county where the Portland city is a very large county. It encumbrances most of Portland addresses. And that is one that is known for higher taxes, higher property taxes, extra charges. You may be paying extra taxes just to live in Multnomah County. And yes, there are a lot of people that move out of the Multnomah County area because they don't want to pay that much tax anymore. Sometimes they're jumping over the river to the Vancouver area and taking advantage of not having, state tax. Other times they're moving to Washington County or Clackamas County or even Yamhill County to get away from some of the higher tax situations that exist. So if you're in Washington County, you're looking at the west side of town, you're looking at Hillsborough, Beaverton, Tigard, Tualatin, and other areas that are great places to live. Clackamas County is also large. That's Lake Oswego, Westland, Oregon City, Milwaukee, Gladstone, Happy Valley, a good area of rural cities as well. You're not going to have to be hit with so many taxes. Now, I said Yamhill County, and although that's not technically Multnomah or the Portland metro, a lot of people are moving to Yamhill County. What is Yamhill County? That's where Newburgh is, our wine country, McMinnville, Dundee, and a lot of other little cities that are fantastic. You're still fairly close into town, but you do have some rural towns mixed in there. You have a smaller town feel. You can get a lot more bang for your buck. Property taxes are a little easier out there, and a lot of people love living further out. So that's an option if you're trying to escape taxes and kind of what's happening in the inner cities. So I think a big portion of the Portland metropolitan is not just Multnomah County. We talk a lot about Portland because that is our big city. That's what's on the map. But a lot of people live and thrive in other counties in the Portland metro area. Like I mentioned, Washington, Clackamas, Yamhill, even Columbia County, which is further out. And there's just a lot more people moving further and further out because of, honestly, pricing. When we help people buy houses, if they've got a very tight budget, a lot of times there's more options further out. Closer you into Portland, the more expensive it gets. So a lot of these counties start to become more available for people the further out they're okay to live, especially if they're on a budget. But Portland is a big, diverse city. It's not as big as some of our counterparts on the West Coast, but it is big enough that you don't have to see or be dramatically affected by some of the stuff happening that we've discussed. And it is still a wonderful place to live. And so many people move back here. I mean, as an agent who's been doing this for 23 years, during COVID, I will be honest, I helped a ton of people move out of Portland. But I'm actually getting phone calls now from people who've moved to other areas of the country and they're starting to say, I miss Portland, we're coming back. I kind of had a feeling that could happen. Why does that happen? Because despite all of the crazy that we've had to deal with here in Portland, you go other places, you're going to find other issues. And I think a lot of people, some of the positives that go on here in Portland supersede some of the negatives. And a lot of us are willing to stick it out and willing to see it through and actually willing to help stick around and improve the communities and places that we live in. So, it's important to do your homework on what area, like what's important to you about living in the area you're going to live in. If it's politics and you're conservative, this might drive you crazy because we're pretty darn liberal. You don't have to be liberal to live here, but it might drive you crazy if you're conservative. The leadership, it struggles. We're still going through a lot of changes in the leadership, which, is tough on getting Portland to improve. There's a lot of things that you can get annoyed with here and a lot of things that can disturb you, but you can also be really appreciative of living in the Northwest. You know, a lot of my colleagues and I talk about it. It's like, why haven't we left? Well, because we love it so much. We love the amenities. We love being close to nature. We love how beautiful it is here. We love, you know, the environment, all these things that really help us appreciate living in the Portland metro area. So just so you know, it's not all bad, even though you hear terrible, terrible things about Portland or have. And I think in years to come, it's going to improve. And here's another thing to think about. Prior to COVID, we did have a homeless problem. We did have some problems. There's no question. But for years, you guys, for years, we were in the top places that people were moving to. I remember the U-Haul reports, which tracks where people move to. Like Portland was in the top 5 places in the United States that people were moving to year after year after year. But they did that because of the lifestyle and because of all the things at your fingertips and all the things we've talked about and more. And yet now we have changed dramatically because, you know, a lot has changed. But I still believe in the things, the reasons people came to Portland. I still see people moving to Portland for those reasons. So all in all being said, I think Portland is going to take time to really make its comeback. I do think out of West Coast cities, it has the biggest opportunity to make a comeback. I'm seeing it happen already. I don't think we're going to solve our problems overnight. I don't think we're going to solve all of our problems, quite frankly. But it is still a great place to live, work, and if you have a family, raise it, or live here just to enjoy what we have going on. So if you are thinking about making a move to Portland, and any of this is commentary you want to make below, go for it. I'm sure you guys have lots to say about what I just talked about. You always do. But if you are thinking about making a move, we have all of our contact information in the description below. We'd be happy to have a further conversation with you about it. Reach out to us. We're happy to go through it. And we have these conversations all the time, quite frankly, because this is what we do and people are making big moves and they want to know what's going on in our area. So reach out to us. We would love to hear from you and we will see you on the next video.